One or two hooks, great question, and that was what I should have gone straight on to. Have you got the notes from last time? Okay, perfect timing. I don't think anybody really expects to catch a fish on both hooks when they use two hooks. Certainly, for you guys who aren't used to trolling lures or catching billfish, I certainly suggest single hooks for safety. And by the time we've finished explaining this, hopefully it'll make a lot more sense. Now, the argument isn't just single hook or twin hook, it's which single hook rig or which twin hook rig. There's, I think, about 150 versions of both. About 149 of them are crap, because they simply don't follow the basic laws of physics. A lot of you blokes are old enough that where you actually did physics and science in schools. The young guys don't do it anymore. Now, according to gravity, the heaviest part of something will actually sit down lowest. Okay, so this is a hook, and everybody thinks a hook runs that way because they think that's the heaviest part. It's not. The heaviest part of the hook is actually the bend down here, and that's the heaviest part. And when a hook is actually running through the water at around about 4 knots, it actually sits like that. Okay, that's what a hook wants to do, and by having a loose loop there, you actually allow the hook to do what it wants to do, which is sit point up. If you look behind the boat when you're trolling lures, you'll actually notice that your rod bends down when the lure dives, straightens up when the lure comes back to the surface, bends down, and the rod's going through the cycle when the lure's going through the cycles, and it does that about every 5 seconds. What that's effectively doing is accelerating the lure and decelerating the lure. So when the lure decelerates, the hook does that. When it accelerates, the hook does that. Okay? If you don't let the hook do that by basically putting heat shrink over there or wire or stiff rigging it, the hook can't do that. So what it does, it tries to compensate and it goes on its side. So you're actually missing out on the target of having your hook point up. So the most important thing about both rigs is that that hook is loose and everything else is loose as well. We've got a swivel here in this end of the rig, because some lures, in fact most lures, when they're working, actually do rotate to some extent. They do that. No matter how good the lure is, their skirts are handmade, they're in the turbulence of your wash and in the chop, so they do rotate. By having the swivel there, you allow the lure to rotate all at once, and the hook point can stay up and keep doing that regardless of how inefficient or how good that lure is. So it's a real safe way of keeping your hook point up. Okay, this is a twin hook rig, and once again, that's loose, that isn't heat shrunk, that's loose there, so the hook can move around and basically ride and stuff. And we've even got a shackle once again to give it its freedom of movement so it can self-balance. This is by far the best twin hook rig, and we actually set the hooks at 60 degrees so they're not actually in line, because when they're in line, the vortexes come off the front hook, hit the back hook, and it actually falls over and rotates. But at 60 degrees, then it's really incredibly stable. The thing is that the twin hook rig is more stable than the single hook rig, for the simple reason is it weighs twice as much, so it's got twice the stability. But we overcome that by simply adding weight to the single hook rig, and that's called a keel weight. It weighs about 3 times as much as a hook, so it really is enough weight to keep that hook point up at most of the trolling speeds you're doing it, probably up to 7.5 knots. Once again, the same rig, everything's loose here, and once again we've still got the swivel, and that's probably the most effective rig you can use if you're fishing choppy conditions. If you're not fishing choppy conditions and you're fishing the calm, then you really don't need the weight. Just the single hook rig is certainly stable enough with that swivel. Okay, those are the only rigs that will give you a consistent hookup rate of over 80% for a 30-year period. Some of the other rigs, they certainly have a good run for a short time, and then they drop flat and they lose 15 fish in a row. You won't have that happen if your drag settings are right, if you're trolling or zigzagging down current and your drags are set properly with this equipment. Okay, that's pretty much all there is to it.